can I still consider myself an artist even if I'm not creating any artwork at the moment? So I was basically working towards becoming a full-time professional artist. I was working part-time as a professional, and I still do facilitate print orders, t-shirt orders, and I kind of enjoy doing that when I've got the time to do that. But so far as creating new artwork goes, moving the business forward, generating a stable income from the whole artwork endeavour, it just hasn't happened. Why hasn't it happened? What's going on? Certain things have been arising. I'm not sure whether these things are connected, but I want to talk about the UK comic convention scene and why it's gone shit, basically. I want to talk about winning awards as an artist, and you could be an award-winning artist, but why, again, that means shit. Why, in fact, an award system could actually just be a scam, and if as an artist or creative or a professional, investing in awards and accolades is just a complete waste of time. I want to explain why. And I also want to talk about this idea of just feeling shame from not creating or not creating to a certain standard and stuff like that, which I want to get to at the end. And I had an experience towards the end of the year, which I'm sort of still in the midst of, that, I'm still dealing with this kind of like, how do I move forward with this kind of thing? Like I say, I don't know if any of this stuff's related, but I just want to talk about it, because these are things that are sort of going on in my head right now, and these are things that I'm sort of thinking about. Comic conventions. So every year I go to London, the big MCM comic convention, and I exhibit my artwork there with like 350 or more artists in the Artist Alley area. And I've been doing that every year, twice a year in London for about 8 years. Until last year. Last year was the first year that I wasn't accepted for a place, some table space at the Artist Alley. So it's vetted. It's a system whereby you submit your portfolio and a little bit of information about you, and the organiser basically decides whether or not they want you there. Typically that's judged on the fact that your artwork needs to be good enough, and also needs to be diverse enough compared to everything else that's there. If it's the same as everyone else's thing, then there's less reason for you to potentially be there. You're going to have less uniqueness to bring to the table. So I don't know why I wasn't given space last year, but anyway, I thought maybe it's just a one-off. You can't win them all, I thought. This year, 2026 rolls around. I apply a second time for the London show. I just want to get back on in the artist scene. I want to start making a little bit of money, because it's all good and well selling the occasional print for sort of 10, 20 pounds online, but a show you can potentially sell 100 prints in one weekend. So there's a lot more footfall, there's a lot more fans, there's a lot more potential buyers, there's a lot more exposure, and it's a good thing to do. But yeah, getting back to this story about how I then applied for this year, and again I didn't get in. I then emailed the organiser. I just said, what's going on? I've never had issues getting in before. The organiser said, I don't run the Artist Alley anymore. As of like end of last year, someone else took it over. I was like, okay, so it's not the usual guy, it's someone else. And obviously that someone else doesn't feel like I deserve a space in this alley. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that the stuff that I'm producing is super unique or super amazing or whatever, but I think it's good. The comic convention scene, certainly in the arts and crafts areas of the shows, they tend to be more sort of female dominated, so you have a sort of more feminine aesthetic styling going on with a lot of the sort of stuff that's being sold. A lot of cutesy chibi stuff. There's a lot of that kind of, what would you call it? It's like a sort of hybrid Disney-esque anime style that kind of does the rounds and is quite popular. And certainly with the guys that go to these comic shows, which I think is probably the slight majority still at comic conventions, the guys tend to sort of resonate more with what I'm doing for whatever reason. And I've been told, your stuff isn't like anyone else's stuff here. I don't know how you do it. It's so unique. Now, I don't necessarily think it's that unique, but okay, I'll take the compliment. But so then I kind of think, well, maybe it's not an issue of diversity. Maybe what I'm producing or putting out into these shows isn't necessarily too bog standard or too similar to most people's stuff. So maybe it's a quality thing. Maybe I don't have the artistic acumen or the quality standard that the organisers now expect. Maybe the standard has gone up. And I wouldn't be surprised, since to be a main retailer in the main other parts of this comic convention, they've recently raised the table prices, and I can imagine a lot of the previous retailers that were selling sort of arts and crafts have now tried to just get into the artist alley, since it's a cheaper subsidised sort of table rate. And so yeah, there might be a bit more competition there. I can see that over the last couple of years, the general standard of artwork quality at comic conventions has gone up a lot. Even the way people present their artwork at the shows. So years ago, I sort of started really hitting it with these kind of big displays, these sort of black panel displays that take up quite a bit of table space, and they're really good for like maximising the amount of space basically that you can put your artwork on. And I've noticed a lot of people then copying that, whereas before the tables were a little bit more bland and sort of low key. So I'm kind of now competing with people that have basically copied what I did and now sort of competing against me. I don't know, for whatever reason it didn't work, but it did mean that was kind of like a big hit to the career. Because if, let's just say, a third of your income is completely dependent on comic conventions and you can no longer get into comic conventions, well, that might be the difference between being able to financially survive as an artist or not. Because obviously the money that an artist generates it's never going to be huge amounts unless you're in those top tiers, you're in the top percentage, of exhibitors. For most people, you're just going to do your best and try and scrape by, and the hit of just not being allowed into one or two of the big shows could be enough to really set you back. So that was a bit of a disappointment, and it got to the point where I sort of thought, well, what am I doing? Like I went a bit more heavy with the whole fan art thing, specifically with the artwork that I was creating, in order to capitalise on the fans that go to the comic conventions, because fan art basically generally sells better than originals in most cases, not all cases. And I thought, well, do I create fan art anymore? Because online, fan art is obviously a lot harder to sell, because you can basically be a licensing agent and you could search out for people that are potentially selling fan art, and you can send them cease and desist or sue them and stuff. So being an artist selling fan art online is a lot harder than it is at a comic convention. So yeah, you then start to think, oh, okay, is my portfolio or are my products basically redundant now? In which case, so that kind of means that a big slice of my income is now moot. So now what do I do? So I've got that kind of hanging over me, and not sure what's going on there. But it basically just seems like, to the thousands of people that have bought from me previously at the comic conventions, if you're watching this, sorry, don't know what to tell you. The organisers won't let me back in the shows. So reach out on social media if you ever want to chat about some stuff, I suppose. Okay, this is another thing. I know I've mentioned this before about being an award-winning artist. Now you'd think if you were an award-winning artist, you'd get into your comic conventions, no problem. Look at you, you've got awards to show how great you are. But no, it doesn't really work like that. For art in general, you're judged on your ability to produce a good quality aesthetic piece of work generally. And having an award doesn't really mean a lot. But I did want to highlight the topic of art awards and people that might proposition you as an artist to be vetted for a potential art award, an accolade. And, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or is it actually just a scam? Lux Life, they produce luxury branded content for people interested in, status and the finer things of life. And they wanted to basically produce this award ceremony where every year people in different fields, in different genres, they'd put their stuff forward, and then if they were good enough, they'd be given an award, and then they can tell all their friends and family how they've won this award. It's kind of a weird thing. Like, I kind of feel like someone that does manga-inspired illustration like me, like, what do I have to do with like luxury lifestyles and stuff? I don't know. But so anyway, Lux Life said you want to be nominated potentially for an award for the 2025 Manga Artist of the Year, and I said, okay. like manga artist of the year specifically. I mean, most people would think, or some people would think, well, look, you're in the UK, you can't be a manga artist because manga is something that Japanese people make. I don't know if I agree with that definition, but certainly manga as the form of comics. I don't even create comics, so I'm not a manga artist in that sense. I'm literally just someone who likes the style, the aesthetic style of manga, and incorporates that somewhat into my artwork. But either way, they wanted to nominate me as this manga artist. So I said yes. Long story short, months later, they said, well, not only have you been nominated, you've now won this award. You're now the UK 2025 Manga Artist of the Year. Now, I'm not saying this to brag. I don't care about validation and stuff, but I wanted to see what would happen if I won this award. And what I predicted was, well, what happened? So this company basically said, well, great, you've won this award. Now, if you would like to buy the premium package, basically, if you want to give us some more money, not that I gave them any money, up until this point it was free, but if you want to give us some money, they said that they would then promote my accolade across the internet. They'd give me a backlink on their website. And I just thought, I don't know, you're asking for like £100 or more. Maybe it was like £500, I can't even remember. There were different tiers of promotion for basically a backlink and a bit of blurb about me on their website. And I thought, well, no, it just seems like a rip-off. Because I wasn't convinced that any people that would visit their website would be the sort of audience that I would want to attract to my website, and therefore there'd be no reason to do that. And I wasn't even convinced I would get any traffic at all from that website. It just seems like a big scam to make you feel hyped up and proud of having this award, so you can, brag about it to your friends and you can show off, and you just want to, I don't know, I don't know what was going on with the whole thing. It just seems like a very transparent, pointless waste of time exercise to me. But like I say, I went through it because I wanted to point out to you or to anyone that's ever been offered the opportunity to have an award, named after you sort of thing, or for you to win an award or be nominated for an award. Fair enough if you like that sort of thing, but what matters more to you? Having someone in, some person in some office send you an email saying, oh, you've won an award for something, or having customers who genuinely connect with you or your work that care about your work. So don't waste your time with any of these types of awards, because I went on their website and I saw there were a few other artists, musicians and photographers that had obviously paid the money, to try and highlight what they were doing as a photographer or musician, whatever it was. And I just thought, this isn't, you've just wasted your money. No one here is going to give you work. No one here is going to care about what you're doing. I know we all want to promote ourselves. We all, I'm for one desperate to sell my artwork, be it at comic conventions or sell it online. But, I'm not so desperate such that I feel like some, random award is going to make the difference between, selling an art print or not, basically. So I wanted to talk about that, and I just wanted to mention that just as a little thing. And lastly, I talked about this issue of feeling as though perhaps the quality of my artwork wasn't sufficient to get into the comic convention, or, there's definitely room for improvement in what I'm doing, even though I kind of feel like I'm really maxing out as much as I can kind of do, which I guess is true of a lot of endeavours, whether it be art or music or writing or even going to the gym. You can make a lot of early gains. You can improve quickly at the start, but once you get to a point where you're getting quite good, to go from quite good to really good, can take way more effort than going from absolutely abysmal to quite good. And anyway, end of last year, someone contacted me on Instagram, someone who's, like a big shot professional, has a very stable career as a professional illustrator, doing book covers and novels, things like that. And this guy generously asked if I would like to be somewhat mentored through working on a piece of artwork to help me up my game, So the idea would be I would work on a thing, send it over for sort of like some approval or some sort of critique, and then it'd be sent for critique. Now, I used to do this stuff back in the day on internet forums. I'd post artwork on internet forums, random people would critique it, but you never knew you know, whether it was an internet forum back in the day, or even now, if you were to go on Reddit and do the same, you don't know who's critiquing your artwork. So I thought, this is great. I've actually got someone who's, you know, I saw their portfolio, I saw the professional work they'd done. It was really high standard. And I thought, this is good. This is an opportunity for me to potentially level up and get some critique from someone I know knows what they're doing. So I started working on some thumbnail images, and my first idea was maybe like some kind of sci-fi girl, sci-fi character, because I still had this idea at the time, and then I kind of changed my mind halfway through to go from that to working on some Final Fantasy VII fan art. You know, I'd always been a big fan of the games back in the days when I first played Final Fantasy VII, when I was like, I don't know, 12 years old, 13 years old, but back then I couldn't draw. So I thought, right, maybe it's time to finally create some fan art. And so I basically went away, did as I was told, got a load of reference, created a bit of character artwork, added a background, which I don't normally do. So then I got some critique to change a few little bits, which I went ahead and did. But in between doing the changes, time was elapsing, you know, weeks were going by, and it kind of got to the point where it all just sort of faded out. I was doing this artwork and I was finding it quite challenging, fair enough, but then other things got in the way. You know, there was a few physical health issues, some problems with work and things like that. And I just basically took a break. And I'm now at a point where I haven't spoken to this guy about this bit of artwork for probably about 4 months, and I don't know what to do about it. I feel pretty ashamed by it, because I was given an opportunity to actually, you know, for free, just work with a teacher who would actually help me with a piece of artwork. And I know I was only getting a little bit of written feedback through sort of social media, but it was still something. And I kind of just squandered the opportunity to some degree, and I didn't finish it. I didn't finish the piece. I didn't bring it to fruition. And now when I think about finishing this piece of artwork, I feel anxious, because it reminds me of messing up and sort of somewhat losing my opportunity to kind of gain some useful critique. And it kind of made me feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't consider myself an artist, you know, like, because if you're not creating artwork, if you're not waking up in the morning raring to put paint to canvas or pixels to graphics tablet, like, can you really consider yourself an artist? Will you ever be successful as an artist if you're not willing to go the extra mile, or if you just don't have that passion to be working on your craft every single day? Or, you know, to some degree, in my case, if there are other outside influences which are stopping you or preventing you from doing that. So this whole thing has basically put me in a mindset where I'm questioning what I'm doing with myself. You know, can I even be considered an artist anymore? You know, I haven't even been regularly uploading on YouTube and even talking about the journey to become a full-time artist. So even in that regard, I feel like potentially, you know, I'm letting the side down, or not that anyone is particularly waiting on me to put out a video, but I just feel like I'm somewhat letting myself down. And it's just one of those difficult things to deal with, because I think everyone comes to a point where they're trying, you know, they're getting so far with whatever it is they're trying to do, and then you just have a little assessment period. You think, well, what am I doing? You know, is this working, or am I really cut out to be the artist or the professional that I want to be? And I'm not necessarily saying that you just give up, but, you know, I think we all go through those phases of just feeling a bit burned out, or, you know, we question the whole endeavour. So I still feel a lot of resistance about, for example, finishing this Final Fantasy VII piece of artwork, but I will hopefully do it. And if I do it, I'll be posting it on this channel. So if you'd like to potentially see that in the future, stay tuned, and hopefully I'll see you again in a future video.